Welcome to the first episode of our course about awkward situations. This is what to do when things get weird, rude, or just plain wrong. Those circumstances where you don't know the right thing to say or do, you're not even sure if you should intervene, and some scripts and prompts to kind of help guide you along in those types of situations. So, in this course, which is also relates to a set of cards we have, a digital download, and there's an ebook. So, what do you do when things get weird, rude, or just plain wrong? You never knew you needed this course. Whether it's the loudmouth at a dinner party, the line cutter at a grocery store, the bragger in the office, or some parent letting their child wreak havoc in a restaurant. Awkward situations are everywhere, every day, and they can be emotionally draining. So, this is a guide to help you stay grounded, find your voice, handle these social, weird, rude, and awkward situations with a little bit more grace. And a little bit of practice will help you feel like you can confidently navigate these types of situations. So, these resources are packed with practical strategies, reflective prompts, and real life scenarios. So, kind hearted people everywhere can stop stewing about, oh my gosh, what should I have done? What should I have said? And start acting and responding in a situationally appropriate way. And I hope you'll join us over the next few episodes and see how I have personally failed at handling many awkward situations and a few where maybe I did the right thing or said the right thing. Welcome to episode 2 of Awkward Situations: What to Do When Things Get Weird, Rude, or Just Plain Wrong. So, this is the introduction episode about why we freeze and why you're not alone. So, we've all been there. You're standing in line at a grocery store, someone barges in ahead like they own the place. You're watching your kid's soccer game, and a parent on the sidelines is yelling at the volunteer coach like it's the World Cup. You're in a meeting at work and someone starts bragging endlessly, or worse, takes credit for your work or your ideas. Sometimes you hear a racist joke at a party, or a friend veers into political territory that makes everyone a little bit uncomfortable. And then you freeze. Not because you don't care, not because you agree with what they're saying or doing, but because you're caught in that painfully human moment where your brain just kind of short circuits. You don't know what to say. You don't want to escalate things. You don't want to seem rude. You want someone else to jump in and fix it, or you just want the situation to disappear. But then you replay it after the fact in your head for hours or days, or maybe it kind of like nags at you a few months later. And if this sounds familiar, you're not broken, you're just human. Most people don't have a go to game plan for dealing with awkward, inappropriate, or sometimes rude social situations. We're taught to be polite, not to rock the boat, to mind our own business. But sometimes silence isn't neutral, it feels like complicity. And that leaves good hearted people like myself and yourself stuck in internal agony long after the moment has passed. And that's why I put this book together, this course, the cards, and the download tools. Awkward Situations is a real world guide for people who want to speak up or stuff in, but don't know how. It's for those who are tired of walking away wondering, should I have said something? Should I have done something? It's for people who want to be kind, not confrontational, but still firm in their values. It's for people who want to model respect, boundaries, and bravery in the face of uncomfortable moments, whether it's in public, at work, at family gatherings, or maybe it's a school drop off meltdown. So, within these resources, you'll find practical phrases and scripts that you can adapt on the spot, activities and prompts to help you build social confidence, tools for dealing with common awkward scenarios, tips for managing your own emotional reactions, especially after the fact, ways to intervene that feel authentic to you. And you don't need to be perfect. You don't need to interact and engage every single time. You don't need to be a superhero. You just need some tools and a little practice. So I am inviting you to get awkward together. In this episode of Awkward Situations, What to Do When Things Get Weird, Rude, or Just Plain Wrong, we're going to cover what makes a situation awkward. So, before we have to know what to do, we need to understand why these situations are so awkward. So, it's not just about social clumsiness, it's emotional tension that builds when the unspoken rules of behavior, like our rules of society, invisible social contracts, get broken. And there's a general consensus that we all kind of follow the same invisible social contracts for the most part. But in these situations, something feels a bit off and your brain kind of lights up. This isn't normal. This isn't right. What do I do? And not all awkward situations are created equal. Some are harmless, some are just rude, some cross the line into harmful or dangerous. So, with this section, I want to help you gauge of when to intervene and how to intervene based on that level where something falls on the spectrum. So there's different types of discomfort. Something can be mildly awkward. So like someone is talking too much about their cat, they interrupt a lot, or they overshare, say at a dinner party or luncheon. There's the socially rude. So those are people that cut in line. They let their kids scream in a restaurant. They interrupt others, or they can be very condescending. There's inappropriate, so sexist or racist comments, taking credit for someone else's work, humble bragging, or dominating conversations with off color topics like deep political rants. And then there's boundary crossing. So someone's getting too touchy, if they're ignoring someone else's discomfort, or they're being maybe invasive and asking too many personal questions. And then the last type is unsafe or aggressive. So yelling at someone, threatening behavior, stalking, or verbal abuse. And awkwardness is a fuzzy gray area between social norms and social violations. It can be hard to know when to laugh it off, when to speak up, when to walk away. But putting a name on that type of awkwardness is kind of a good way to give you the first step. So sometimes social norms matter and sometimes they don't. There are some rules. So as a general, if you're raised a certain way, if you live in a certain area, you know what's polite, you know what's respectful, and you know what's appropriate given a situation. So I was raised that you don't cut people off in a conversation. I was raised that you don't yell in public and that you generally shouldn't yell at people. You say thank you when someone holds the door for you or does a nice kind gesture. And most of us follow these types of rules without even thinking about it. And for some people, they completely ignore them or they're not aware of them. And it may be a cultural thing, it may be where they were raised, it may be how they were raised. The problem is that when someone breaks one of these socially agreed upon rules, especially in a public setting, it creates discomfort. And if you are the one who notices, but no one else reacts, you start second guessing your instincts. Was it weird? Was it rude? Am I overreacting? Am I too sensitive? And this is especially true in a Canadian culture. Like, we're very polite, we're conflict avoidant, we're taught to be nice, not to make a fuss. We give people the benefit of the doubt. But there's a difference between being nice and being a doormat. Context is kind of that difference. So, is a parent loudly cheering at a kid's sports game? That's probably fine. Are they yelling at the coach or a referee or a volunteer? That's not okay. Is someone making jokes at a casual social party or lunch? Probably okay. That same joke might not carry over into a workplace meeting, so that makes it not okay. So, who is involved? Where are you? What's the power dynamic? What are the cultural or community norms? And what are your values? So, as you go through the next few episodes, you're going to build your own internal radar for what crosses your line and how to respond without losing your cool. So, think about this: what makes you uncomfortable and what sets those alarms off? Think of a recent situation where you felt awkward or frustrated but didn't speak up. Take a moment, write down what happened, who was involved, where were you, and what do you wish you would have said or have done? Then ask yourself, was the behavior rude? Was it inappropriate? Or was it just a bit off? What stopped me from responding or acting in that situation? And then how did I feel after? And as the new situations come up, put yourself through that exercise again and start to notice patterns. There's specific types of behavior or people or settings that constantly trigger you. It'll just raise your awareness and help you plan and respond with more intention. So, in the next episode, we'll cover how to shift your mindset from freeze and panic to frame. So, those awkward moments gives you a chance to stay strong, stay grounded, or speak up or act if the situation is appropriate. In this episode of Awkward Situations, What to Do When Things Get Weird, Rude, or Just Plain Wrong, we'll cover the mindset shift from freeze to frame. You know, the feeling, your stomach flips, you get like bugs and buzzing in your stomach, your throat tightens, your brain fogs, you want to say something, but your mouth won't cooperate. Like the words will not come out. That is a freeze. Instead of freezing, though, the moment passes and you're left replaying it over and over. Why didn't I say something? Why didn't I do something? Freezing is normal. It's a hardwired survival response. When our brains perceive a social threat like conflict, embarrassment, or public awkwardness, they kind of lock down. The good news is you can train yourself to respond differently. This chapter is about shifting from freeze mode to frame mode, and it's a calm, curious, values-based mindset that can help you manage awkward moments with a little bit more clarity and a little bit less panic. To start that, it would be good to know why we freeze. So, in awkward or tense social situations, our nervous system reacts in a way that is meant to protect us. We have the classic stress responses that you're probably familiar with. So, there's fight, so you want to argue, confront, or lash out. There's flight, so you want to run, get out of that situation, escape. There's freeze, where you just shut down and go silent. And then there's fawn, so you people please and you agree to keep the peace. Most well-meaning people, especially those who've been raised to be polite, kind of default to freeze or fawn. And it's not about weakness. It's just about kind of that social norm. But social courage isn't about being loud or bold. It's about being present even when it's uncomfortable. So to frame the moment, and instead of letting panic take over, try reframing it with this internal shift. This is uncomfortable, not dangerous. By framing and naming the moment accurately, you can help your nervous system downshift from survival mode to problem solving mode. And that pause can create just enough space to respond instead of react or disappear. So, some other cues you could try is I can stay grounded, even if this is awkward. I don't have to fix this. I just have to be respectful. I just have to be present. Or it's okay to say something small. I don't need to be perfect. I don't need to be a hero. You also want to understand your role in these situations. So, are you a witness? You saw something, you heard something, but it wasn't directed at you. Am I a bystander? I'm nearby and I can choose to intervene or not. Or am I a participant? Is this conflict and awkwardness directed at me? And your response will shift depending on where you're at, who you're with. A witness may choose to check in privately with someone afterwards. A participant may need to assert boundaries in the moment. And a bystander might gently interrupt or distract. You have to find that human approach and use a little bit of judgment to find what the best plan of attack is in those types of situations. So first, you can ground yourself. And this is kind of like if you've heard of the Superman pose, this is kind of a similar thing. You're just readying your body and your mind to manage the situation. So press your feet into the floor and take a slow breath. Count 5 things you can see or hear. Clench and release your hands once. and silently repeat, I can handle this one breath at a time. And it's not to make you feel comfortable, it's more like to make you feel capable and competent. One of the biggest reasons people spiral after awkward situation is emotional overinvestment. I mean, me personally, I'm an overthinker. I will overanalyze a conversation 1,000 times in my head. And you're saying, Leslie, there's drugs for that. Yeah, that's a side tangent. Maybe we'll talk about that one day. But you might feel responsible. Um, you might feel like you should be the one making things right, or maybe you wonder if you made it worse. So a reframing tool to do that is, I can care without carrying it. You're allowed to set a boundary. You're allowed to redirect a conversation, or you're allowed to just not engage in behavior that doesn't sit right with you without absorbing the emotional mess, dumpster fire that may follow. You don't need to win. You just need to act with integrity. So, what is one thing holding you back? Take some time to think about, when I'm in an awkward situation or an inappropriate situation, I hold back because fill in the blank. Unpack that. Is it true? Is it helpful? Is it based on past experience? Once you see it clearly, you can decide whether you want to keep it or replace it. One option to replace it is, it's not rude to have values. It's not aggressive to speak respectfully. It's not selfish to protect my space. And you can come up with your own similar replacements. These are just a couple suggestions. So, in the next episode, we'll dig into practical phrases, prompts, and scripts that will help you work in the moment, whether you're trying to stop a rant, redirect a conversation, or shut down a boundary pusher with dignity and grace. In this episode of Awkward Situations, what to do when things get weird, rude, or just plain wrong, I'll give you some scripts and sayings that actually worked. So, if you're in the heat of a moment, someone's ranting, lying, cutting in line, crossing a boundary, you need a lifeline, a phrase, a sentence, just a trigger to help you get unstuck. They're not designed to be perfect, but they're designed to be doable, especially when your brain is kind of glitching and your heart is pounding and you're kind of on the fence, like, do I, don't I? So adapt these to your needs, find something you find comfortable with, and practice them and make them your own. Sometimes a simple interruption is enough to diffuse a situation and break down the momentum. So these are low stake ways of pausing in the moment without pouring more fuel on the fire. Hey, can I pause for a second? Whoa, can we take a breath? Sorry, can I jump in for a moment? And you don't even have to say anything else. Sometimes you're just stopping the action in the moment. And it buys a little bit of time for yourself and others to kind of recalibrate. And sometimes, if you can imagine being on the other side of the rant, so maybe you're having a really bad day, maybe you got a parking ticket and you are checking out your groceries and your card was declined, and then you tried your debit card and that card was declined, and you don't have enough cash to buy your groceries. And rather than redirect your anger and frustration, you take it out on the cashier and you're yelling and you're screaming, and someone jumps in and kind of like forces that moment on you, like, maybe just, are you okay? And it kind of puts that own freeze on them, like, oh my gosh, this is not my behavior, this is not how I normally act. And it kind of gives them an excuse to back out of the situation. We can also politely redirect and set boundaries. So if someone's hogging the conversation or veering into inappropriate topics, which is all the rage these days, or maybe they're crossing personal boundaries, some practical prompts might be, let's keep it respectful, or that's not a topic I'm comfortable diving into, or I'm going to steer us back on track. That comment's not sitting right with me. Let's change gears. That one's a bit heavy for this topic right now. And in those situations, you want to keep your tone even and firm, but not confrontational. You're not asking permission, you're setting the tone. And then there's like some nuances, right? If you're in a situation with friends or family, you know them, you like them, you want to keep liking them. There might be different nudges you can try. So um, I'm trying to think of like this example that happened to me. My mom, we were taking a family photo, and we were traveling, and I didn't have a lot of great clothes with me. I didn't have a lot of clean clothes, and she's like made some comments about my size and my body, and I was like, you might not have meant it that way, but that landed pretty hard, and it hurt my feelings. And will my mom change? No. Um, she's always very critical and judgmental, but it was a gentle way for me to kind of try and shut down that commentary. Some other prompts you could try is, hey, I care about you. Can I offer a bit of feedback? Or I love your stories, but sometimes these are a bit intense. Can we try talking about something different? Or that joke's a little off color. Can we try a different punchline? Stopping inappropriate or harmful talk can be a little bit more challenging for racist or sexist or discriminatory comments. It's okay to be direct, but you don't want to go into a tirade or lecture of your own. So keep it simple, short, and neutral. I don't think that's funny. I'm not okay with that kind of comment. Let's not go there. Can we shift away from that topic? It's not appropriate. I'd rather not have that kind of conversation. And if you don't feel safe confronting it directly, you can shut it down with silence, you can walk away, or you can have a private conversation one on one later. And it means you're still responding and you're still trying to encourage a more positive behavior, but you're doing it on terms you're a little bit more comfortable with. I deal with this a lot at the type of work that I used to do. People are really big into self promotion. They're interested in ego and power and taking all the credit, and they think they're the most brilliant person ever in the room. So you don't have to play along exactly, but you can kind of acknowledge them without encouraging them and then gently pivot the conversation. So, a couple of responses to try. Sounds like you've had a big week. I can tell you're proud of that. Let's hear from someone else for a bit. You've got a lot going on. How about we make space for others too? In situations where it's in a public or larger social setting, you can step in and still hold ground. Short, neutral, helpful. Think of you're not scolding, you're not yelling, you're not nagging, you're anchoring. Hey there, heads up. We've all been waiting. So that's easy to say to someone who might have cut in line in front of you. Or would you mind keeping your voice down a bit? You know, that might be good for the kids' soccer game where everyone's getting all riled up. Or can you give us some space? Or, you know what, I saw your kid doing that, running around in circles over there. You might want to have a word with them, just don't want them to get hurt. Now, when you're on the other side of the social awkwardness, when you are the target, if someone gets personal, invasive, or just plain rude, you can say, I'm not comfortable talking about that. That feels a little bit personal. I'd rather not go there. I'm going to excuse myself. That's not something I need to explain. But also remember that silence is very powerful. Sometimes no reaction is a reaction. And sometimes the people who are the aggressors in these situations, they're just looking for a reaction. They're looking to poke you. They're looking for a way to rile you up or the crowd up. And then there's ways we can escalate in these social situations. So there's a redirect privately. Can I talk to you for a second? Or can we talk later? There's the public cue. So let's keep this respectful, please. Or there's a firm stop, like maybe it's getting aggressive or potentially escalating further. This needs to stop now. And then there's the exit. Leave, call for help, alert someone in charge. So I see this a lot, especially since, the past 5 or 6 years have been really tough in retail and like cafe type settings and restaurant settings where people are abusive to staff and cashiers and retail workers and restaurant workers, baristas at the coffee shop. Um, it's okay to call in their manager. It's okay to ask them, do you want me to call for help? And that in itself might diffuse a situation. And you don't have to use these word for word. Like I said, practice them, make them your own, and choose a few that you like in various situations. Practice them in front of the mirror, say them out loud in the car, run scenarios in your head before a tricky family gathering or team meeting. And that way, when the moment strikes, your brain won't be scrambling. You'll have like a phrase or two in your back pocket. Then you can say, oh, this works. So, coming up in the next episode, we'll talk about real life situations, how to respond, whether it's a shouting match at a kids' game, a line meeting, or a friend who just won't read the room. In this episode of Awkward Situations, what to do when things get weird, rude, or just plain wrong, we'll cover handling common scenarios. So, now that you've got some mindset tools, go to scripts, let's get a bit more specific. There are some really common situations that kind of come up over and over again. Uh, and you kind of just want to assess each one a little bit differently and how you would respond to each one a little bit differently. And you want to practice being able to respond without losing your cool. So, this one I think is probably the second most common, at least in my experience. And I'd say it happens at least once a week. And I've actually been practicing ways to kind of intervene. So you're waiting in line. The lines are long these days. There's only ever one cashier, and someone skips ahead, and you feel annoyed and you're in a hurry, but you don't want to make a scene. So a couple possible responses are, hey there, I think the line starts back there. And you make the gentle motion somewhere towards your back. Or just a heads up, we've all been waiting for a bit. Or you could be a little bit more direct and say, would you mind stepping back in line? We're all in this together. And I know this sounds so cheesy, but it's not even the individual words exactly. It's more about bringing awareness and putting that kind of stop in, right? So they will not remember a single word you said. They'll just remember, oh, that was the person who called me out on my action. And when people are making these actions, most of the time, they're doing it innocently. They had no idea they were doing anything wrong. And those are the people who are going to like get to the back of the line and be apologetic, right? And then you've got a couple people who might, if they're intentionally cutting in line in front of you, they're the ones that are going to be jerks. They're not even going to care what you say. They're going to be mad that you called them out on their crappy behavior. So, like I said, you don't have to be perfect. Find your own words and phrasing. These are just suggestions. So for like the youth sports meltdown, I used to coach kids swimming. And there was always a number of coaches around. I think the ratio was like one coach for every 5 kids. And the ages I coached were from about 5 years old to, 20 plus, most of them being 8 to 12. Oh, parents would always yell at us. And we were paid pennies, but it was a job. And we didn't really have refs for this type of sport, but there was timers. There were, the rule enforcers and people there for safety. So our feedback, we got really good at it. Like, let's keep this positive for the kids, or this is a positive encouragement zone only. And the kids are doing their best. The coaches are doing their best. Let's set a model of respect. And then you can talk to them privately. Like, I know you're passionate. I know you love your kid. I know you're so excited for them to be, the next Olympic medalist. But it comes across really intense. So is there something we can do to work on that together? Or is everything okay? So it anchors it to values, respect, modeling good behavior, fairness. You're not scolding them. You're not nagging them. You're just reminding them of like, these is how we socially acceptable rules that we follow, right? And this is another common scenario that I've run into a lot. So someone dominates the conversation. They're always bragging or boasting about their accomplishments, or they're talking over others. And you can say, yeah, thanks for sharing. Let's get some other voices or opinions in the conversation. Or I appreciate your perspective. Is there anyone else who hasn't spoken yet? Or is there anyone else who would like to share their story? Or let's get back on the agenda. That kind of is an easy one, assuming you have an agenda and you don't need to take them down. You just need to kind of balance the conversation again. And there's times when we've all been in a work situation where your colleague presents your idea as their own, or they forget to give you credit, or they they accuse you maybe of stealing their idea like it was theirs first. It's like, yeah, whatever, buddy. The right approach there is stay composed, stay neutral, don't accuse, correct the record with poise and dignity and grace as much as you can withstand. Some possible responses. It's great to see that idea is being used. It's something I've been working on for a while. I'd love to build on that. When I first proposed it 2 months ago, my thinking was, and then address them privately. Like I noticed you said something I shared. Can we be sure to share credit going forward, or can you give me credit where it's due? There's a lot of situations where we have sexist comments, racist comments, or people on their political rants. And those can be really challenging in social or professional settings because it's kind of become almost normal to do that. And some possible responses there. That's not something I'm okay with. I don't think that lands well with everyone. Can we keep things respectful? Or I wanted to flag something you said earlier. It came across as inappropriate. Focus on impact, not intent. You don't need to explain why it was wrong in the moment. You just need to draw the line. There are some situations that border on creepy or invasive. They make you uncomfortable, they invade your personal space, or may even cross social and physical boundaries. Some possible responses in those situations could be, that's not appropriate. Please give me some space. I'm going to step away now. Or you can say, I'm calling for help. Like if someone is legitimately a threat, you don't hesitate to call the police or call for help. You have to protect your safety first. You're never overreacting or protecting your comfort or boundaries. Your personal safety comes first. Just want to reiterate that. And then we have situations of checked out parents with wild children. There's a couple of those in our family. The kids run wild, they scream, they create unsafe situations, and the adult may or may not be paying attention. So there's ways that you can speak to the child depending on their age, and there may be ways you can speak to the parent or guardian. Hey, I just wanted to check in that your little one is okay over there, or it's getting a little bit hectic in here. Can we dial it down a bit? Or let's slow down so someone doesn't get hurt. Prioritize safety over judgment, and a gentle tone works better than confrontation in these types of situations. Sometimes you have situations where they're just bad, off color, or offensive jokes, and you're kind of stuck in the middle. You can say, not really my kind of joke. I think you're crossing a line. Let's steer things somewhere else. You're not required to explain why it's offensive in the moment. A clear, neutral signal is often enough. Or you've got a friend who dominates every conversation and interrupts constantly and shares way too much. You can say, can I pause you for a second? I think a few others may want to jump in. I love your enthusiasm, but let's make space for others too. That's a lot to take in. I want to unpack that a bit slower. Because these are your friends and family, you might want to be kind but honest. And because you're going to be seeing these people over and over again, as is in the case with friends and family, you really want to kind of nip that behavior in the bud because it just continues. So is this something you want to tolerate for years and years to come? And if you do nip this behavior, these people could become much more enjoyable to spend time with. And sometimes friends and family don't realize how they're coming across until someone reflects it or mirrors it back to them because they just don't have that keen self-awareness. For political tirades and rants that are often making others visibly uncomfortable, you can say, politics is off the table. It's a little too heavy for us today. Or we have different views in the room. Let's keep it light. Or maybe you start a new topic like, anyone have vacation plans? Or what good movies have you watched lately? So you're not shutting down the debate. You're not engaging in the debate. You're kind of just redirecting it for comfort of the group and people in the conversation. So not every moment demands an action, but there are a couple shortcuts. So if the situation is just a little bit rude, the risk is low, then you can ignore it or redirect it. If there's a moderate risk, a gentle comment and intervention might be the way to go. And if it's high risk, then that might be a good opportunity to provide one on one private feedback. If it is a boundary violation that is low risk, you might want to provide a clear statement. If it is a moderate risk, then you want to clearly redirect that conversation. If it is a high risk boundary violation, call for help, exit, or escalate. Safety first. If it's discrimination and it's low risk, a firm public response is probably appropriate. If it's moderate risk, a private follow up will probably be enough. And if it's a high risk situation, report it, seek support. In the next episode, we'll look at what to do when the awkward person is someone you know and care about. Because awkward gets messy when it's love and loyalty and long history kind of being that relationship carrier there. So, looking forward to that chat with you then. In this episode of Awkward Situations, what to do when things get weird, rude, or just plain wrong, we'll talk about what to do when it's someone you know and like. So it could be a close friend, could be a distant friend, could be family. There's family you see every day. There's family you see maybe once every 10 years. Maybe it's your sibling, or maybe it's a coworker you eat lunch with every day. The stakes feel a little bit higher when there's history, trust, loyalty, and mutual care involved. And that's why a lot of people avoid speaking up. Will worry that will embarrass them, that will make things worse, that will lose the relationship or the vibe. But the truth is that real relationships can withstand honest feedback. And awkward moments handled with care can even deepen trust and connection. So we'll help you navigate those situations where awkward gets personal. When you're emotionally invested and you don't want to seem judgmental and you fear damaging the relationship, and this isn't a one off, it's a pattern of their behavior. Instead of saying anything, you kind of stew about it, you get resentful, you avoid them, you get snippy with them, and maybe you start distancing yourself from them altogether. And it's not because that friend isn't worth your time or that family member isn't meaningful to you, but because you just don't know how to talk about that one awkward thing. So let's try to change that. Timing is everything. If you confront someone in the heat of the moment, they can become embarrassed, reactive, or they may be even unaware that their behavior has caused discomfort. So you can wait. These are situations where it might be better to wait until you're both calm, until you have some private space, and you can be clear about your intention. You want to connect and not condemn. So, my brother tends to talk a lot about his very niche beliefs in politics, and I love him to death, and he's brilliant, and he's hardworking, and he's a great person, incredibly generous. But this is one area where I was just like, I got tired of the conversation, and it felt like it was Groundhog Day. It's like, wow, we're going to talk about this again today for 2 hours. I'm tired of this. So instead, I had to shut it down. So I said, hey, I wanted to bring this to your attention because I value your relationship. You're one of my best friends, and I don't want this to become an issue and us not spend good quality time together anymore. So he received that feedback, and he was in a time and place where he could receive that feedback, and he's been able to work on that and take the feedback away, and he's much better about it now. And then every once in a while, if I need to gently nudge him or remind him, it's at a place now where we can kind of laugh about it. So it's a nice inside joke between us, and our relationship is so much better for it. There's some other options. So I don't think you meant it that way, but that comment might have landed harder for you than intended. Or, I know your heart's in the right place, but I also noticed people got a lot quieter after that joke. Or, can I give you a bit of feedback? It's something I would want you to tell me if the roles were reversed. And that kind of brings it to a different level because then you can relate to someone differently. It's not you yelling at them or judging them or telling them to do something differently. It's like, I've made that mistake. And that kind of helps soften and tone the matters down a little bit. Body language goes a long way. You want to show warmth, express care, keep it human. These are supposedly people you care about and love. So we have the overshare as a common situation with potentially close connections. How do we respond to them? I love how open you are, but that caught me off guard. Can we keep some of that between us? Or the interrupter. I know you get excited to contribute, and sometimes I notice others getting cut off. Let's make space for everyone, or let's give everyone a chance to speak. And some of us have friends who are always negative, and that negativity is contagious. So you can say, I'm sorry you've had a rough go, and I'm always here for you, but I'm feeling a bit drained. Can we make some space for lighter stuff? And then we have, that weird uncle or aunt or cousin who has problematic views on life or society, and it's their way or the highway, and they're trying to convince every single person of their way. So you can say, I know we see things differently and I respect you, but I'm not okay with this topic or that kind of comment. And to give feedback without sounding like a jerk, use the stop, start, plus impact approach. So I really appreciate how involved you are in the team meetings. I also wanted to mention something I noticed. Sometimes when you jump in quickly, others stop sharing. And I don't think you mean to shut people down, but your approach might be having that effect. So you're acknowledging something positive, you're naming the behavior, you're describing the impact, and it gives them an opportunity to chat or provide their side of the story, so to speak. And some people, when they're confronted, they might get embarrassed or angry or dismissive or frustrated or passive aggressive. But you have to remember your intent. You're not there to control their reaction. You're here to express a boundary or experience and say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you. I'm just being honest about how it felt. I care about you. That's why I said something. We don't have to agree, but I need to be able to speak up too. Or if it were me, I would want someone to let me know if I was being disrespectful, rude, or crossing a boundary. And sometimes you have to know when to let it go. So if the behavior is minor and it's not repeated, let it go. If you've already addressed it in the past, you might want to let it go. Or if the moment has truly passed and you've lost your opportunity to intervene, then just make peace with it. Letting go is not avoiding, it's something you're consciously deciding to do. That's a choice. You're not a failure. So, something to ask yourself and think about: what am I afraid will happen if I speak up? And what might happen if I don't? Often, what we're really trying to protect is connection, especially with friends and family. And honest communication preserves and strengthens those friendships. Silent responses or non responses, really, they build resentment and they close connections and they will break down relationships. So, in the next chapter or episode, we'll tackle awkward moments in public group settings. And, if there's an unclear norm or high chance of secondhand cringe, there's some fringe scenarios that we'll be able to discuss. In this episode of Awkward Situations, What to Do When Things Get Weird, Rude, or Just Plain Wrong, we'll talk a bit more about public settings, group situations, and social mixes. So it's one thing to deal with awkwardness in one-on-one moments or private relationships. It's another thing entirely when things go sideways in a full room of people. Dinner parties, work functions, restaurants, community events, school assemblies, book clubs, breakout rooms. These are shared spaces and they have their own unspoken rules, lots of diverse personalities, and plenty of potential for weirdness. So when someone violates that vibe, says something offensive, dominates the space, disrupts the flow, we all feel it. But most people won't speak up, they don't know what to say, or they don't know what to do. So the goal of this episode is to help you navigate group awkwardness with just enough social courage to make a difference. So group awkwardness feels a bit riskier because the social spotlight is a bit bigger. There's the fear of embarrassing someone publicly. There's a lot of pressure to just go along with it. And you don't always know who's in the room, right? You might be distant colleagues or people that are friends of friends or family that you don't really see that often. So you're not the only one feeling it, but your discomfort is shared often in these types of situations. So to read the room, do a quick internal scan. Who is in the room? What is the tone? What is the vibe? Are others reacting or are they freezing? Is this a momentary slip or is it a pattern of behavior? What is at stake emotionally, professionally, socially? And then these factors all together say, do you let it slide? Check in later? Redirect? Shut it down? Or escalate? So, ways to intervene in the moment without making it worse. So, you could do a neutral redirect. Like, let's bring this back to the agenda. Let's bring this back to the main topic. Let's stay on track. We've only got a few minutes. Or you can group reframe. So, it sounds like we've got a bunch of mixed opinions. How do we shift gears or move this forward? Or can we save that debate for another day? Or my favorite, let's put that on the parking lot, which we never revisit. It's just about shutting it down in that moment. We can do a polite stop. So let's keep it respectful. That's not quite appropriate. Or we can kind of flag it. So some people look a little bit uncomfortable right now. Or let's take a break. That's a great one. You're not scolding. You're just gently guiding and nudging the group back to safety, civility, and usefulness. When you're the one leading the conversation, so maybe you're a facilitator or a teacher or a manager or you're hosting an event, you have responsibility and permission to intervene. It is your responsibility to set expectations early and say, let's keep this space respectful and inclusive. You can use structure to help you do that. So you can set an agenda, time limits, round robins. You can set up a parking lot to deal with disruptive topics. You can interrupt behavior and not people. So you can say, I'm going to pause this. We're veering off course. And if you make a mistake, you can own it because modeling respective behavior and modeling humility creates more room for respectful course correction for everyone. So you can also manage disruption without escalation. When the tension is escalating or getting angry, or there's rude interruptions or passive aggressive jabs, there's a few ways you can try to cool it down. So you can deflect with curiosity. So you can ask questions. And this is probably my number one go-to for any situation. I ask questions and then I ask more questions. And I will literally shut someone down with questions. I'm totally famous for that. So can you clarify what you meant by that? Or what outcome were you hoping for? Are you okay? And that one's a little bit passive aggressive because it can be misconstrued as being attacked for how I'm behaving, but it kind of works and it's neutral enough to kind of calm down any situation because it stops. And as the aggressor, it makes you think like, why are they asking that? What did I do? What did I say? You can ground the conversation with structure. So let's stick to one speaker at a time. Let's wrap this point and move on. Let's come back to that topic another time. And call out the behavior, not the person. So that comment might have landed the wrong way. Let's reset. Or keep things on topic and respectful. And even if you intervene skillfully, you might feel shaky or self conscious, or you might say the wrong thing, or you might stumble, and that's okay. You did something. You did something brave, and you did something that no one else was willing to do or able to do in the moment. It's not about being smooth, it's about being steady. You act in line with your values, and that's commendable. And awkwardness is temporary, integrity lasts forever. And really, as humans that live and interact with each other through varying degrees in society, we could all stand to use a little bit more integrity. And after you speak up or redirect, someone will probably thank you later. And I have had this happen to me. Someone will feel relief, someone will feel seen, someone will feel validated, and someone will feel protected, even if they never said it out loud. You're not just managing awkwardness, you're creating a safer space for everyone in the room. That is so important because there are people who will never be able to speak up for themselves. There are people who will never be able to speak up for others. So I'm going to repeat that. You're not just managing awkwardness, you're creating a safer space for everyone. And that is priceless. So if you feel awkwardness building, count to 3. In those seconds, let your brain move from reflex to reflection. And what is the kindest, truthful thing you could say? How can you shift the energy? That tiny pause can make all the difference. So hopefully that is something good for you to think on, ponder on, and I'll see you in the next episode. In this episode of Awkward Situations, what to do when things get weird, rude, or just plain wrong. What to say when you don't know what to say. So you're in the middle of it. Something happened. Someone said something inappropriate, weird, offensive, rude, baffling, and your brain freezes. Your inner voice is screaming, say something, but your mouth, just the words aren't coming out. So when you don't know what to say, or you're worried you'll make it worse, these phrases and tools and mindset shifts can help you say something without saying everything. Again, don't need to be perfect. You just need to start somewhere. So you can buy time. This is one great tactic. Sometimes the best move is not to respond right away, but you buy yourself a few seconds. Like, I'm sorry. Can you repeat yourself? I'm not sure what to say just yet. Interesting. Let me sit with that a moment. Or, I need a second to think about it. These statements don't shut the conversation down, but they protect your brain from blurting out something really stupid. And again, a lot of this isn't about the actual words that you say, it's about interrupting that flow of the rage, of the awkwardness, of the rant, of the tirade, or whatever that negative tension is. It's just gently shutting it down. You can use a question. So, again, it's that pause. It gives that opportunity for the other person, the aggressor, in these cases, to reflect or flounder. So, what do you mean by that? Can you explain yourself? Can you explain what you're getting at? How do you see that working out? Are you sure that's the message you want to send? A calm question undercuts the tension and gives everyone space to kind of think about what's next. You can reflect it back to them also, gently but clearly. That came across as strong. Is that your intent? Or that's not sitting right with me, to be honest. Or I'm not sure if you noticed, but that made a few people uncomfortable. So you're naming what just happened. You're giving the other person a chance to adjust, reconsider, or back down. And if you feel the mood going sideways, but you don't want to get into it, you can try to neutrally deflect, steer the conversation by saying, okay, let's switch gears, or let's pull this back to the main point, or that's a big topic. Maybe we can discuss that another time. You're not solving anything, you're just deflecting and redirecting. And if you have a good sense of humor, you can maybe put in a joke. And it's sometimes great to diffuse a tense moment, and it kind of can soften the escalation. And it doesn't work if the situation is aggressive or harmful. You have to know your audience, and you don't want to be mocking or dismissing someone who's been hurt. So, a couple options here are: how did we get here? Or you've been saying that opinion for a while, haven't you? Or let's keep it friendly before the room bursts into flames. So, any light, dry humor can disarm someone. It just has to be the right humor for the right situation. Silence is also a statement. Body language also sends a statement. So, you can break eye contact, you can shift your body away, you can excuse yourself from the conversation, you can raise an eyebrow. You're not obliged to engage. Sometimes the most powerful response is to not play the game. Anchor in your values, not the outcome. When you don't know what to say, come back to the question: what would someone I respect say in this moment? Let that guide your words and your actions. Even short sentences spoken calmly with integrity can have impact. So you could say, that's not how I choose to talk about people. Or I believe in keeping conversations respectful. Or I don't think that's appropriate, so I'm going to leave it there. You don't need to convince them. You just need to stand in your own values. You'll never say the perfect thing, and that's okay. You'll stumble. You'll wish you phrased it better. You'll replay it in your mind 1,000 times, and you'll tweak the imaginary role-playing scenario you have in your head. But you get better with it, and sometimes being imperfect is still better than not saying anything. Even if you practice, even if it's awkward, you'll build your confidence, and your future self will thank you. So, quick practice prompt. Let's keep this respectful. I'm not sure I follow. Can you explain? That doesn't sit right with me. Pick one line from this episode and make it your own. Tweak the wording, put your own spin on it, say it out loud a few times, and this is your go to. My favorite one, like I said, I like to annihilate someone with questions, and I start with, are you okay? So if you've got the mom with the stressed out kids running around like crazy, and you ask the mom, are you okay? Maybe she needs to hear that from someone that cares. If your brother's ranting about politics for the millionth time today, you can ask, are you okay? And then it opens a conversation. In the next episode, we'll talk about what happens after the awkward moment, the overthinking, the what ifs, the regret spiral, and we'll discuss how to manage that. In this episode of Awkward Situations, what to do when things get weird, rude, or just plain wrong, let's talk about what happens after the fact. The moment happened, you were there, it was weird, inappropriate, intense, or all of the above. Maybe you said something, maybe you froze, maybe you handled it with textbook brilliance, or maybe it came out all wrong and now you're replaying it in your mind like a broken record. Welcome to the awkward aftermath. So, this is about what happens after the situation, because for many kind hearted, conscientious adults, the event itself isn't the hardest part. It's what happens after and the mental reruns that follow. And I know for myself, oh my gosh, I will replay it for hours, for days, for weeks, for months, and I never forget it. It just haunts me, with the saying, it's taking up space in my brain and not paying rent. So let's walk through how to unpack it, debrief, and let it go without dragging guilt, shame, or confusion along for the ride. So these replay loops are perfectly normal. It doesn't mean they're useful. Your brain wants to solve problems, and it replays the moment over and over, trying to figure out what went wrong, what you could have said or done differently, whether everyone now thinks you're awful. And it's your brain's way of trying to keep you safe. But after a point, it stops being helpful and it starts being self-punishing. So it's okay to reflect, but you have to close the file, archive it, and move on. So you can tell yourself, I've reviewed this enough, I'm choosing to release it now. And sometimes that's just enough to give it the kick to the curb that it needs. And you can reflect without ruminating. If the situation is still bothering you, take 10 minutes and walk through a quick reflective process. The goal isn't to shame yourself, it's to learn, ground, and move forward. So what happened? What was I feeling in the moment? What did I do or say? What do I wish I had done or said? What can I carry forward next time this happens? You're not reliving it, you're extracting wisdom. That's the difference between reflection and rumination. You have permission to be imperfect. Maybe you didn't say anything. Maybe you said too much. Maybe you tried to help and it came out sideways. So you're still a good person. Life is messy. Awkward situations are messy. Responses are imperfect. Even if you handled it imperfectly, welcome to being human. What matters is that you care and that you're learning. So tell yourself, I'm learning how to show up. This doesn't require perfection. And if you do want to circle back, you're still thinking about what happened. And maybe you need to repair or clarify or deepen trust with the other person in the situation. So you want to talk to them. I've been thinking about our conversation earlier, and can I check in about something I said? Or I realize I froze during that situation. I wish I had said something. I want to talk about it now. Or I want to own my part in what happened yesterday. Can we talk about it for a second? People appreciate honesty more than polish and perfection. It's okay to circle back with that person if it feels right for you. And self compassion is like your brain cleanup crew. After any difficult social situation, it's tempting to go into self blame mode, but awkwardness isn't failure. It's a sign you noticed something, you felt something, you cared about something, you cared about another human being. That's not weakness, that's empathy. Tell yourself, I'm doing my best to navigate human moments with integrity. That's enough. And sometimes you have to let it go, even if it still feels icky. Not every awkward moment needs to be dissected endlessly. Some situations are weird and you'll never fully understand what happened. People say bizarre things sometimes. People mess up. You're allowed to move on. You're allowed to leave it broken and messy. You can choose peace over overthinking. If you need a ritual, try writing it down and then shredding the page. You can say out loud that I release this. You can go for a walk and consciously leave it on the trail behind you. Letting go is a skill. Start small and practice often. And awkwardness doesn't mean you failed. We're not supposed to be immune to awkwardness. You're not failing because you care. You're not weak because you hesitated. You're growing. You're learning. Each moment you choose curiosity over defensiveness, boundaries over silence, and grace over shame, you're building emotional strength. You are allowed to be a work in progress. So, coming up, we'll wrap things up in the next episode with a reminder to be present, principles, and a little bit brave sometimes. In this episode of Awkward Situations, what to do when things get weird, rude, or just plain wrong, it's about being present. So, like we said, life is messy, people are unpredictable, people are weird. Social situations are rarely one side, the other side, ones and zeros, black and white. We sometimes get things awkward, inappropriate, and things get uncomfortable fast. But you don't need to be the most articulate person in the room. You don't have to have the perfect comeback or the best timing or the saint of a patient or the patience of a saint or get your words right in the right order. What you do need is presence, and you need to try, you need to show up. Presence means staying grounded when you'd rather disappear. It means speaking up imperfectly when someone crosses the line. It means knowing that awkward moments are a part of being human and that your response doesn't have to be polished to be powerful. The real win is acting in line with your values. This book and course isn't about confrontation for the sake of it. It's about learning to align your actions with your values, even in hard moments. Sometimes that means stepping in and taking action. Sometimes it means gently redirecting a conversation. Sometimes it means saying nothing, but choosing not to carry that moment after. Whatever that looks like for you, it's yours to define. You don't need to be a hero. You just need to show up with care. Small responses can have a really big impact. One quiet sentence can stop a rant. One redirect can protect someone's dignity. One pause can keep a room from tipping into chaos. Most people won't remember exactly what you said, but they will remember how you made them feel. Calm, respectful, and just a little bit braver than most. So Let this be practice. You will freeze, you will overthink, you will replay that broken record over and over again in your head. But now you have a few tools, prompts, scripts, questions, and boundaries and recovery strategies. You don't have to get it right every time, but I encourage you to try. The more you do, the more natural it becomes. If awkward situations leave you spiraling, you're not weird, you're not weak, you're human, you're tuned in. You care about how you affect others, you care about fairness, you want to live with integrity in a noisy, complicated world. And that is something to be proud of. So I give you permission to take up space in uncomfortable moments, speak up without being perfect, walk away when something isn't right, and to forgive yourself for the times that you didn't. Awkward doesn't mean you're doing it wrong, it means you're human and you keep showing up anyway. So I hope you've enjoyed these past few episodes about awkward situations. And I have a episode of bonus materials, so hopefully you'll stay tuned for those. In this bonus episode for awkward situations, what to do when things get weird, rude, or just plain wrong, I'm giving you some quick cheat sheet phrases for real time awkwardness. Hey, can I pause this for a second? Let's take a breath. Sorry, mind if I jump in? There's 3 neutral interrupters that you can use, and they work in a variety of situations. So for polite redirects, let's keep this on track. I'd rather not go there. Can we shift topics? And in terms of setting boundaries, you can really clearly and directly say, that's not okay with me. I'm not comfortable with that. I'm going to take a step back. And if you just need a light reframe, you can say, that landed a bit hard, harder than I think you intended. Do you want to try that again, maybe differently? Or let's try a different angle and see if we can get to a solution that works for all of us. In this bonus episode for awkward situations, what to do when things get weird, rude, or just plain wrong, I'm going to give you some prompts to help you prepare mentally for future awkward situations and process those that you've experienced. So, in 5 questions, what kinds of situations tend to make me freeze or shut down? When was the last time I said something I was proud of, even if it felt awkward? What stops me from speaking up, and what is underneath that fear? How do I want people to feel when I speak up? What does respectful courage look like to me in action? And you can revisit these questions as you learn and grow and practice. In this bonus episode for awkward situations, what to do when things get weird, rude, or just plain wrong, I'm going to give you a few prompts to basically practice role playing. So you can do this on your own or with a friend or your bestie. Choose a common scenario. So if you're dealing with a bragger, a rude comment, a line cutter in public, or maybe the rage shopper, each take turns playing the role of the awkward person and the aggressor. And you can play off each other and your personalities to do that. Practice using different tones. Try being calm, light, assertive. Try maybe injecting some humor into the situation. And what felt natural to you after the fact? What was hard? What worked? And what do you want to keep practicing? In this bonus episode of Awkward Situations, what to do when things get weird, rude, or just plain wrong, I want to give you some reframe prompts to help you with your self compassion. So, when you're being a little bit hard on yourself or your brain is overanalyzing and replaying the broken record, I want you to be kind to yourself. So, you can say, that was uncomfortable, but I stayed present, and that is what matters. Even silence can be a powerful choice. It was not perfect, but I was true to myself. I'm allowed to learn in public. That moment doesn't define me, but my values do. In this bonus episode for awkward situations, what to do when things get weird, rude, or just plain wrong, I want to give you kind of a Is it worth it decision flowchart. You should use this to help you decide if you should respond or intervene and maybe even walk away. So ask yourself first, is anyone being harmed or excluded right now? If the answer is yes, consider speaking up. If the answer is no, continue on, let the situation play out. Ask yourself, am I in a safe place to respond emotionally, physically, and or socially? If yes, choose your tool of choice. So script, your redirect, your prompt, your boundary, your question. And if you're not in a safe space, plan for a later check-in or be prepared to let it go. Question 3. Will speaking up align with my values, even if it's awkward? Yes, proceed. If not, take a step back and reflect further. In this bonus episode for awkward situations, what to do when things get weird, rude, or just plain wrong, I'm going to give you kind of some prompts as a values clarification worksheet. So, when in doubt, anchor to what you stand for. The first question is, what do I value in social spaces? So for example, that could be respect, inclusion, calmness, fairness, truth, or humor. Personally, what motivates me is fairness, and I tend to fight a little bit harder for that. Second question, what behaviors do I want to support or protect? Third question, what behaviors do I want to discourage? Question 4, how do I want to show up when things get weird? And question 5, who inspires me in moments of courage and why? I encourage you to think through these questions and think about the kind of person you want to be and how you want to show up. In this bonus episode for awkward situations, what to do when things get weird, rude, or just plain wrong, I have a few questions for you to follow up with. If it's a friend, family member, or close colleague that you've had an awkward moment with. So, things you could say to them. I've been thinking about what happened, or here's how it landed for me, or can we talk about this? Or I care about our relationship, so I wanted to check in. Or in this moment, I wish I had done X, or I wish I had said X. So, in that, asking these questions or opening that conversation, you're showing that you care. You're showing that you have kindness and appreciation and respect towards them. And it will hopefully open up their end of the dialogue so that you can have a meaningful conversation and move forward so that these awkward conversations and moments happen less and less.